Hi class, hi everyone. So today we'll be reading the fourth unit and the most important topic that concerns all of us, which is consumer protection. Now, to start with, let us understand the idea of consumerism. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, he used to say, a consumer is the most important visitor on our premise. He is not dependent on us, we are on him. He is not an interruption to our work, he is the purpose of it. We are not doing a favor to a consumer by giving him an opportunity. He is giving us a favor by giving an opportunity to serve him. So we used to consider consumer as a sovereign, as one of the most important person because if there will not be consumers, it become difficult for the trade or business to operate. Mm, let's understand the definition that is being given in the Macmillan Dictionary. Consumerism is concerned with protecting consumers from all the organizations with which there is exchanged relationship. It means wherever there exists a relationship of exchange, that particular institution is concerned about consumers, and therefore consumerism is an idea or a movement that is concerned with protecting consumers from such organizations. It encompasses the set of activities of government, business, independent organizations, and concerned consumers that are designed to protect the right of consumers. So, all these are the stakeholders who have been involved in this movement of consumerism. So it's a kind of a relationship that has to be taken care of from the side of the government, the consumers, the business parties, even the independent organizations, the NGOs, the civil society. All of them are being involved into this movement. Now, if I just sum up this idea, we can say that it is a process where consumers seek redress, restitution, and remedy for dissatisfaction. So, whenever the consumers are dissatisfied from the goods or the services which they receive, then the process through which they will seek any kind of a redress, we can term that as consumerism. Second, it is a kind of a social movement. Now, why social movement? Because it is in the welfare domain of the government to take care of the people. That is why we have called it a social movement. Third, it is a socio-economic program of government and business enterprises. So, herein the social idea is also involved, as well as we are protecting the rights of the consumers because we want the economic growth of the country as well. So if the consumers will not be satisfied, they will not be purchased, there will not be further investments, and therefore the economic growth will be impacted, and therefore the government as well as the business enterprises, they are interested in protecting the rights of the consumers. Therefore we can say that it is all pervasive term. It means it encompasses a number of things. In simple words, we can say it's the people's search for getting better value of the money. Okay. Now, to start with the evolutionary idea of this concept, earlier the concept of caveat emptor was present. It means that buyer beware. It means that the one who has to buy certain things, he himself need to be cautious and aware while buying that particular thing, and it was not the responsibility of the seller, rather the responsibility of the buyer. So if he was affected in any situation, in any case, then it was said that buyer should not have bought that particular thing, right? It should be his responsibility to see while purchasing that particular thing that whether that was appropriate or not, whether it has an expiry date and still you have bought it. Like all the responsibility was put on the shoulders of the consumer in the olden days. Also, the personal relationships that existed between the consumers and the sellers, that also governed the consumerism concept. In fact, if you see in your villages or in your towns, therein this relationship exists wherein a relationship of trust is there. Like if you know somebody, you will just go and buy it without just analyzing as to what the product is exactly like. So those personal relations were predominant in earlier times, but now we see that there have been so much of reform, specifically after the LPG movement. Now there are a number of sellers, rather there are organized chains, and there are Walmarts. So therefore now we cannot put the entire responsibility on the consumer. It's has now become the responsibility of the business enterprises, of the government also, to take care of the consumers. Okay. Then we say that now the manufacturing activity is much more organized, the producers and sellers are more strong and more organized, and therefore we put this burden of taking care on them as well. Now, why do we need consumerism? Why are we even reading about consumer protection, or why there is so much of debate about consumerism or consumer protection, specifically if we talk of India? If you know that in India, people are still, they are illiterate, they are not aware of their rights, and there is exploitation of the consumers in numerous forms. It could be the adulteration of food that happens. It's very common now, and then you see, you read in the news that this product was being made by using such and such constituents. Okay, so for example, you have this red chili and red pepper, you can say, that is being made from this the color of bricks. Okay, the powder of the bricks is being used, that's been mixed into it. Number of examples, numerous examples you will find. Then you see there are high prices, that's poor quality, there is black marketing, hazardous products are there. So all these are the issues that concern us from day to day life. Okay, and then there are new kind of challenges that come before us. We being a product of 21st century, there are issues like cybercrime, plastic money, deceptive advertisements, and people are still not aware. The specifically the people who are at the marginal edge of the society, those people, in fact, I've seen many educated people also, they blindly just buy the products because the kind of endorsement that is behind that particular product, just because somebody else has bought that, or because XYZ is advertising about it, we just buy the product without applying our mind, without looking to what are our needs. Okay, so therefore it becomes important for us that this concept of consumerism, that it should gain importance, it should gain strength at this point of time. uh, so these are certain factual knowledge for you, some facts. It's being said that Mr. Ralph Nader, who was one of the well-known American advocate, he's the inventor of consumerism. Although we say that the idea for us is not new, but 15th of March is observed as the World Consumer Rights Day, and 24th of December is National Consumer Rights Day, wherein you get the stickers of Jago Grahak Jago. And 9th of April 1985, in that particular year, United Nations has adopted guidelines to persuade its member countries to bring in law in their respective jurisdictions. Okay, now let's come to what are the important features of the Consumer Protection Act. Let me tell you one thing, that there are, earlier it's the 1986 Act, and recently we have got the 2019 Act. Now my focus would be on the 2019 Act, reason being that what was there in the 1986 Act is still there. So it's not that something has been repealed, but there are certain additions. Okay, so definitely we'll be reading what was already there, plus there are some new concepts, some new definitions, some new authorities that we'll be reading in the 2019 Act. So therefore the focus would be on the 2019 Act, although I have tried to incorporate both the acts in a way that you are able to understand it. So for example, if there is a definition of some particular concept, then I have used both the sections, like in the earlier act which section referred to it, and in the new law which section has referred to it. So you must have observed that. Okay, Now, the basic features of this act are that it applies to all the goods and services unless anything is being exempted very particularly or specifically. Second, it covers all the sectors, be it private, public, or cooperative. Third, provisions are compensatory in nature. Fourth, it provides adjudicatory and regulatory authorities. Now, I've put a star or asterisk here because a new authority has been come up, which is Central Consumer Protection Authority. So, it is a kind of a regulatory authority. Earlier, no such authority was being present in the 1986 Act. And this point is very important, that remedy which is provided under this act is not in derogation of other laws. So please remember that when we are talking of consumer protection, it is not only the Consumer Protection Act that governs the right of the people. We have number of acts. In fact, your IPC, your Indian Contract Act, all of these laws would govern the consumer rights. Okay, so therefore it's stated that it is not in derogation of the other laws but just an addition to it. Now, what were the problems in the 1986 Act? So, in the 1986 Act, number of amendments had already been introduced. I think 3 times it has been amended. So, yes, in 1991, in 1993, and 2002, the Act was being amended. But still, there were certain problems, like the Act does not grant the authority to proceed against any person who was guilty of a violation under the Act. Okay, then it does not provide that a suo motu cognizance of an unfair trade practice or an action undermining the rights of the consumer. So there was no provision of the suo motu action that could have been taken. Then the disposal rates, they were good, but the disposal time was very long. So it amounted to around 12 months on an average for a single case. Then it does not address these particular issues which have now been incorporated in the 2019 Act. So they are like consumer contracts, product liability. There was no provision for mediation or e-filing of the cases. There was no regulatory body. So all these concepts have now been very specifically incorporated in the new Act, and there is a provision for all of them. Now let's try to understand the structure of the Act. It's very necessary from the examination point of view, specifically when objective questions are being asked to you in some competitive exams, that which of the section uh, pertains to which of the following concepts. So you need to mix and match the following. Okay, so chapter 1 is application of the act and the definition. So section 1 is the application and section 2 contains the definitions. Then in chapter 2 we have consumer protection councils. Now these consumer protection councils are not new, they were also present in the earlier act, and these bodies are present at the district level, state level, and at the central level. So also when we'll be dealing with the authorities under the act, again we'll discuss about it. Then third is your Central Consumer Protection Authority, that is CCPA, we call it in short, or we call it to be Central Authority. This is what I was talking about, that this is a new body which has been created under the act, so it is having a lot of powers, and if it really functions the way it is being mentioned in the act, it can do wonders. Then we have chapter 4, which is Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission. Now again we have this at 3 levels. We have dispute forums, we have district forums, we have state commissions, and then we have national commissions. So from the national commission, the appeal goes to the Supreme Court directly. So these are the redressal bodies, so you can file your complaint accordingly in these bodies. Then we have chapter 5, mediation. It is a new chapter which has been added. Earlier, in the earlier act, there were only 4 chapters. So these are certain new additions. So there are in total 8 chapters, and there were earlier only 31 sections. 4 chapters, 31 sections in the old act, and 8 chapters and 107 sections in the new act. Okay, now mediation is something new, product liability is new, offenses and penalties were same, and then there are some miscellaneous provisions. So this is the comparative slide. We can have a look at that, it's important. Okay, so in the 1986 act, as I said, there was no separate regulator. In the 2019 act, we have CCPA, which is a regulating body. Second, complaint could be filed in a consumer court where the seller's office is located. Now this is a great relief to the consumers, seriously, because now the complaint can be filed in a consumer court where the complainant resides or works. Okay, so this is a landmark thing that is being incorporated in the act. Third, no provision was there with respect to product liability, and consumer could approach a civil court, but he or she can't approach a consumer court. But now the consumers can seek compensation for the harm that is being caused by a product or service. Okay, now the pecuniary jurisdiction has also been increased. Earlier, in district forums, you can go up to 20 lakhs. In state, 20 lakh to 1 crore. In national, at national level, it was above 1 crore. Now, of district forum itself, it is increased to 1 crore. In states, from 1 to 10 crores, and in national level, above 10 crores. For e-commerce, there was no provision. Now we have the same, and all rules of direct selling are extended to e-commerce. Again, for mediation, there were no such provision. Now we have mediation cells, and the court can refer the settlement through mediation. Okay. Now let's start with the definitions. So first thing first, who is a consumer? So in the new act, it is section 2 clause 7. In the old, it is 2 clause D. Now consumer means any person who first buys any goods for a consideration which has been paid. Now this is something I've copied verb act itself. Okay, so first read the definition as it is given in the act. So what does it say? Buys any goods for a consideration, so consideration, remember, which has been paid or promised or partly paid and partly promised. Okay, so it's not necessary that you should pay it immediately. If it is even partly paid and partly promised, it is fine. This is one. Then, or under any system of deferred payment, it means even the barter system would apply here, and includes any user of such goods other than the person who buys such goods for consideration paid or promised or partly promised or under any system of deferred payment when such use is made with the approval of such person. But okay, so part is that about consideration and the deferred payment as well. Second part is that it includes not only the person who buys it but also the person who uses it. Okay, so for example, if I have bought a scooty and if I have given it to my sister, then in fact my sister, if she is hurt by that scooty in some way because there was some defect in that, then she can also file the complaint. Okay, third is the exclusive part of it. Like it excludes what? It excludes that it does not include a person who obtains such good for resale or for any commercial purpose. So if you have just bought it for your business or for resale for commercial purpose, then sorry, you are not a consumer. Okay, now let's go to the definition of goods, because herein we'll be reading two definitions: one, consumer of goods, and second, consumer of services. So this is consumer of goods, that is the first part of the definition. So let's understand what are goods. Now in the 1986 act, the term goods was not defined, and it was said that it means the same thing as it is being there in the Sale of Goods Act of 1930. Okay, now what is the definition in Sale of Goods Act? It's being given in section 2 clause 7. It says goods means every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money, and includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass, and things attached to it, or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. ठीक है, तो हर तरह की मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी एक्शनेबल क्लेम्स को छोड़ के गुड्स की डेफिनेशन का पार्ट है. ठीक है, न्यू एक्ट में गुड्स को सेक्शन 2 क्लॉज 12 है, एंड इट मीन्स every kind of movable property, and it also includes food. Now this is an addition, please remember that in the goods we have included food, so therefore now the cases of adulteration of food can be directly covered under the Consumer Protection Act. So it's defined as every kind of movable property, and it includes food as defined in clause J of subsection 1 of section 3 of Food Safety and Standard Act. It means we are including food as well, and the definition of food is being given under section 31J of Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006. Okay, now what are the constituents of consumer of goods? Let us examine the same. Okay, now first, as I said, the goods are bought for consideration. So there must be a sale transaction between the seller and a buyer, and the sale must be of goods. So the buying of goods must be for consideration. You understand consideration as being defined in the Indian Contract Act, but yes, herein the consideration is not only limited to money. As I said, there could be barter system as well. Second, any person who used the goods with the approval of the buyer is a consumer. So as I gave you the example that even if my sister is using that with my permission, she is also consumer within the ambit of the definition of consumer. So let us read some examples. Okay, it's the same. A purchased a scooter which was in B's possession from the date of purchase. Okay, so A has purchased it, but it was with B, and B was using it and taking it to the seller for repairs and service from time to time. Later on, B had a complaint regarding the scooter. He sued the seller. The seller pleaded that since B did not buy the scooter, he was not a consumer, and under the act, he was not a consumer under the act. And the Delhi State Commission, it held that B, the complainant, was using it with the approval of A, the buyer, and therefore he was the consumer under the act. Okay, so you can say that it is a kind of an exception that is being provided under the act, and the rules of privity that we apply do not apply here. Now, coming to the exclusive part of the definition, it says that any person who obtains the goods for resale or commercial purpose is not a consumer. The term for resale, it implies that goods are brought for the purpose of selling them, and the expression for commercial purpose is intended to cover the cases other than those of resale of goods. So when goods are bought to resell or commercially exploit them, such buyer or user is not a consumer under the act. Let's read the examples, it will be more clear. For example, L Limited purchased a computer system from Z. The computer system was giving constant trouble and Z was not attending it properly. So L Limited, he filed a case against Z with the National Commission. Now Z contended that L Limited was not a consumer under the act because the computer system was used for commercial purpose. So L Limited argued that computer system was not directly used for commercial purpose, rather it was used to facilitate the work of the company. Now the commission rejected the argument on the grounds that system was made part of the assets of the company and its expenses were met by it out of the business income. Thus, the said purchase was purchased for commercial purpose and L Limited was held not to be a consumer under the act. Okay. But yes, definitely there's not a clear cut bar on it. There is an explanation that is being provided which is attached with section 2 of the Consumer Protection Act, and definitely this was being brought after the 1993 amendment, And it further, you can say it is an exception to the exception. It says that the person buying goods for self employment is a consumer. Okay, so when goods are bought for commercial purpose and such purpose satisfy these criteria: number one, that goods are used for the buyer himself, exclusively for the purpose of earning livelihood, that is for self employment, then such use would not be termed as a use for commercial purpose and the user is recognized as a consumer. ठीक है, अब इसका एग्जाम्पल पढ़ लेते हैं. It says, for example, A buys a truck for plying it as a public carrier by himself, then A is a consumer. But A buys a truck and he hires a driver to ply it, then A is not a consumer. A has one cloth shop. He starts another business of a photocopier and buys a photocopy machine thereof. He hasn't bought this machine exclusively for the purpose of earning livelihood. Therefore, he is not a consumer under the act. ठीक है, तो अगर आपने फोटोकॉपियर मशीन खुद के लिए खरीदी, आप खुद फोटोकॉपी कर रहे हो और उससे जो आपको पैसा मिल रहा है वो आपका एक तरह का सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट है, आपने खुद अपनी लाइफ सस्टेन करने के लिए एम्प्लॉयमेंट किया है, तो वो उस केस में अगर आपको फोटोकॉपी मशीन आपकी ख़राब हो जाती तो आप एक कंज्यूमर हैं, आप कंप्लेंट फाइल कर सकते हैं. लेकिन वही अगर आपने किसी और को रेंट पे दे रखी है और आप उससे पैसा आ रहा है आपको और आप किसी और दूसरे बिजनेस में भी लगे हुए हैं, तो वो कॉमर्शियल पर्पस हो जाएगा और उसका एक्सेप्शन आपको नहीं मिलेगा, और इसलिए यू विल नॉट बी अ कंज्यूमर. ठीक है, so that this is an exception to the rule that a buyer of commercial goods is not a consumer under the act. That, as I said, it is just kind of an exception to the exception. So exception is that if you have bought something for commercial purpose, that you are not a consumer. But if you have bought it for commercial purpose, but that commercial purpose is for sustaining your own livelihood and it is for your own use, then you can be a consumer under the act. Okay. Further, it's important to note that if such a buyer takes assistance of two or more persons to help him in operating the vehicle or machine, then he does not ceases to be a consumer. ठीक है, अब इसके भी एग्जाम्पल हैं. A buys a truck. Okay, he plied himself and he hires a cleaner who accompany him all the time and at times driver drives also when A is busy otherwise, then A is a consumer. ठीक है, अपने साथ के लिए उसने अगर कोई हेल्पर रख लिया है, कोई क्लीनर रख लिया है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि वो कॉमर्शियल पर्पस हो जाएगा. A will still remain to be a consumer. Another example is, and these are the facts of one of the cases, that P, who is an eye surgeon, he purchased a machine from R for the hospital run by him. Now, the machine was found to be defective one, and R contended that P was not a consumer under the Act as the machine was bought for commercial purpose. Here, the National Commission rejected the argument and held that P is a medical practitioner, he is a professional working by way of self employment by using his knowledge and skill to earn his livelihood, and it was not proved by any evidence that P is running a huge hospital. Thus, the purchase of machinery is in the nature of self-employment. तो यहाँ कमीशन ने क्या देखा कि he is a professional person, he has bought that machine for his own use and he was not running a huge hospital and therefore he is definitely a consumer. तो ये था हमारा पहला पार्ट, कंज्यूमर ऑफ गुड्स. ठीक है, अब हम पढ़ रहे हैं कंज्यूमर ऑफ सर्विसेज, जो कि पार्ट 2 में है उसी डेफिनेशन का. तो क्या कहता है कंज्यूमर ऑफ सर्विसेज? Consumer of services is one who hires or avails of any service for consideration which has been paid or promised or partly paid and partly promised or under any system of deferred payment and includes any beneficiary of such service other than the person who hires or avails of the service for consideration, paid or promised or partly paid and partly promised or under any system of deferred payment when such service are availed of with the approval of the first mentioned person but does not include a person who avails of such service for any commercial purpose. So basically the same thing applies here. If you yourself has hired or availed the service, then or if any person who is being authorized by you, to whom you have given your approval, if he is using that service, then he is also a consumer. Second thing is that you can pay the consideration immediately, or it could be partly paid or partly promised. In both the situations, you are a consumer. Now, the term hire, it's not being defined in the act, and its dictionary meaning is to procure the use of service at a price. Thus, the term hire has also been used in the sense of avail or use. Accordingly, it may be understood that consumer means any person who avails or uses any service. Now, read the definition of service. So, in the new act, it is defined under section 2, clause 42. In the old one, it's 21O. So, you can remember it from O for old. Okay. So, service means service of any description which is made available to potential users and includes, but it's not limited to, the provision of facilities in connection with banking, financing, insurance, transport, processing, supply of electrical or other energy, telecom. Now, the word telecom has been added in the definition of service. This is a new addition by way of 2019 amendment. Okay, so now you can go against your telecom operators if you are not getting a good data, if there are no signals, you can go. Then boarding or lodging or both, housing, construction, entertainment, all these are the categories of service for which you can file a complaint. Okay, but it's also exclusive of this thing that it will not include rendering of any service that is free of charge, or if it is under a contract of personal service. Now let's try to understand the constituent of this definition. So first thing is that service is made available to the potential users. So service is not only to the actual users but also to those who are capable of using it. You are understanding this? That it's not necessary that if A has hired the service, he'll only use it. If there's another person B who has taken the permission from A, then he will also use it. And potential means, if supposedly if I have bought a Wi-Fi, definitely only I will not use it, my family members will also use it, so definitely they can also file a complaint. So potential users mean that the ambit is large, it's wide. It should not be free of charge. So the medical service which are rendered free of charge in government hospital is not a service under the act. Now I think the doubt should have been cleared. We can definitely file the case under negligence, but not probably under the Consumer Protection Act. Then it should not be under a contract of personal service. Now for example, if landlord is providing me some service, then in just reply of the same, it's not that I will give my personal services to him in the form of the labor on his field. Okay, so that kind of exchange is not considered under the definition. Further, let's understand the difference between contract of personal service and contract for personal service. So the expression contract of personal service, this is something not defined under the act, but in common parlance we understand it to be a contract to render the service in a private capacity to an individual. Okay, for example, where a servant enters into an agreement with a master for employment, or where a landlord agrees to supply water to his tenant, these are the contracts of personal service. So these are not covered within the ambit of definition of services. The idea is that a personal service relationship, a person can discontinue the service at any time according to his will. He need not approach the consumer forum to complain about deficiency in service. So when it is a matter of personal service, you can at your own will discontinue at any point of time if you are dissatisfied. Okay, you need not run to the consumer courts. Okay, so what's the important note? That it is contract of personal service is excluded from the definition of service. Contract for personal service is recognized as service under the Act, and it does not make a difference whether the service provider is a government body or a private body. Thus, even if statutory corporation provides a deficient service, it can be made liable under the Act. So, whosoever is providing the service, all of them are being covered. As I already said, that it covers all kind of entities. B could be private, public, government, corporate or cooperatives. Now let's read some examples of services. Uh, some other sectors, professional service, which are not specified in the definition of service, but which have been considered by the consumer forums are this: advocates, airlines, chartered accountants, couriers, chit fund, education, gas cylinder, LPG, medical services, postal services, railway, investment, related services, telephone service. Now, telephone service are being specifically included. Thus, the test is whether the person against whom the complaint is made performs a service for consideration which is sought by a potential user. Okay, so the difference we were trying to understand that the contract of personal service is not a part of service, but contract for personal service is a part of service under the Act. So, what's the major difference? In case of contract of personal service, the service seeker can order or require what is to be done and how it is to be done. I think we have already understood this concept when we were reading vicarious liability. Like a master can tell his servant to bring goods from a particular place, but in contract for personal service, the service seeker can tell only what is to be done. How the work will be done is at the wish of the performer. So, like when a person gives a suit to the tailor for stitching, he does not tell him which method he should use to stitch the same. Okay. Some more examples of service. A passenger getting railway reservation after payment is hiring service for consideration. Okay. Second, a landlord. This is what is not a service. A landlord neglected and refused to provide the agreed amenities to his tenant. He filed a complaint against the landlord under the Consumer Protection Act. So the National Commission said that sorry, it is not a case of consumer protection. Rather, you should go to the appropriate forum, and it is a case which pertains to the lease of immovable property, and it is not of hiring of services of the landlord. We already discussed it that it's not necessary that you pay it immediately. It could be paid or payable at a later point of time. So the examples of the same are: supposedly A hires an advocate to file a suit for recovery of money from his employer. He promised to pay the fee to the advocate after settlement of the suit. A is a consumer under the Act, although it hardly happens. Okay, then A goes to a doctor to get himself treated for a fracture. The doctor, being his friend, charged him nothing for the treatment. A is not a consumer because it's necessary that some consideration should be given. It should not be free. Okay. Third, the direct and indirect taxes which are paid to the state by citizen is not a payment of the services rendered. Okay, so you cannot put a claim against the municipal corporations that you're paying tax and they are not taking care of your locality. So T was paying a property tax for his house to the local corporation, and this corporation was responsible for proper water supply to the premises under its work area. So T raised a consumer dispute over the inadequacy of water supply by the corporation. Now, here the National Commission held that it was not a consumer dispute, as water supply was made by the corporation out of its statutory duty and not by virtue of payment of taxes. Okay, so always remember, can be factual questions that can be put to you, that when direct and indirect taxes are being paid, then whether the services which are being rendered by the statutory authorities that would amount to services under the Act, the answer is no. Okay, other important note for us, that in case of goods, the buyer of goods for commercial purpose ceases to be a consumer under the Act. On the other hand, a consumer of service for commercial purpose remains a consumer under the Act, and this has come by way of interpretations. So there is one case, and the facts were that S, supplied to electricity board for electricity connection. Sorry, it applied to electricity board for electricity connection for a flour mill. There was a delay in releasing the connection. So S made a complaint for deficiency in service. He was held a consumer under the act. Okay. So although he was operating a flour mill and there was no connection of electricity there, and therefore it the same was not being denied on this basis that he is running a commercial entity, and therefore the services which are provided to him would not be covered under the act. It was not so. Rather, the commission said that definitely he is a consumer and he is liable for, sorry, he is definitely having the claim, and therefore the electricity board is liable to take the appropriate action. Now there is explanation B, and written the 2019 Act because it's been added in by way of this 2019 new Act. What does it say? That buys and goods and hires or avails or any services includes offline or online transactions through electronic means by teleshopping or direct selling or multi-level marketing. So your e-platforms are also being covered on it. So definitely you can have a case against Flipkart, Amazon, etc., etc., because now the e-platforms are also covered within the ambit of services and goods. Okay, so we've read two definitions. First we read about the consumer. So we divided into two parts: consumer of goods, consumer of services. Then we tried to learn what do we mean by goods and what do we mean by services. So we learned about goods, we learned about services. Now let's come to person, because it says that consumer is a person. So therefore it becomes important to know that who is a person. So here we'll understand person in a legal parlance and not just in our common language, a person. So person includes all these categories. First, an individual, a firm whether registered or not, an HUF, Hindu Undivided Family, a cooperative society, an association of persons, whether they are registered under the Societies Registration Act or not. This is good. That of persons, not necessarily that it has to be registered. It can be an informal association as well. Any corporation, company, or body of individuals, whether incorporated or not. Any artificial judicial person not falling within any of the preceding subclasses. So these are all the categories of person, and section 2 clause 31 defines person. So we have pretty covered the major definitions which are given in your syllabus. Okay, apart from that there are some new additions in the definition that we'll be reading soon in the next coming lecture. All the best. Please, if you have any doubts, read it. It's a very important act, and specifically the 2019 act has become more important from your GK point of view, from your examination point of view. Must be aware of it. Okay. Okay.